The meeting of the Backbench Business Committee, where we'll be considering 7 applications for debates in either the Chamber or Westminster Hall. The first of those is going to be, the application is from Vera Hobhouse on the cost of energy.
Thank you very much, Chair. So you have seen my debate application, but I can summarise one of our most important topics that we've been discussing in the previous, but also this Parliament, is of course the cost of energy, because it impacts households, it impacts the cost of living, and also we need to get to net zero, so there will be many more costs coming our way. It has lots of implications also, for example, on societal costs of hosting infrastructure if we're wanting to have a grid built out in the way that it is proposed by government. But this application would allow members from all sorts of political persuasions to come and contribute to what actually the cost of energy is. Talking also about whether we can decouple gas and electricity prices, which currently makes the price for energy very high. I know that the government is considering that. So there are a number of important issues that can be covered by members across the political divide, and I think it would make for a very interesting discussion that will also interest constituents.
Well, thank you for the application. Your request is for Tuesday in Westminster Hall for a 90-minute debate. The first time we've got available where the Energy Security and Net Zero Department are answering is actually the Tuesday, the 11th of February. Would you be able to take that if it's offered?
I'm happy with that.
Okay.
Can I just chime in quickly as well?
I'm going to open to other questions now.
So, obviously, fantastic debate, something you always talk about, you're clearly passionate about it. For this to happen, you need more Labour members. You need a 50-50 split. And I think we should probably do better as a Backbench Business Select Committee on getting out there and telling people this, but week in, week out, we're getting these debates, and having 2 people from the government side.
I have acquired a few more.
You've got acquired more. You beat me to it. Even better.
I was warned that, and in fact, I should have known that the government usually wants to have a bigger number of government MPs signing an application, and I'm sorry that I hadn't conveyed that to my member of staff.
If you've got the names, could you just read out the names?
Yeah, then the additional names are Alex Sobel and Tim Rocker.
That shut me up.
And that qualifies.
Yeah, so that's 4 for that we.
Yeah. Awesome.
Or for you only need 8 speakers for.
Because you only need 8.
Fantastic.
Any other questions, colleagues? No. Well, the clerks will be in touch. Thank you for your presentation.
Do you want my piece of paper with the additional names?
That's the clerks. That'd be very helpful. And then the next application, Gideon, is.
Have you just text Mark? I'm sorry.
Good. So the next application is from Gideon Amos on entitled Saving Post Offices. We're gently suggesting that it should be retitled to be The Future of Local Post Office Services, to make it a more neutral title. But please, Gideon, present your application.
More than happy with the revised title. Thank you, Mr. Backman. The proposal has, I think, widespread cross-party support. There are 115 post offices scheduled for which are being considered for closure at the moment. So it's affecting communities really across the country. Although there are suggestions that many of these post offices will be reformatted. There might be franchise operations. The example from my constituency that I give that means that this isn't entirely reliable. So in Wellington, I have a town of 15,000 people, doesn't have a post office at all. Imagine the delight of residents when they heard a building was being opened with post office written above the door, which turns out to be a banking hub that doesn't provide post office services. So we also have, that's a particular angle on this that I'm concerned about. Obviously residents of Wellington are rather confused when they see a post office building going up that doesn't provide any post office services. But that's a particular issue. But obviously communities around the country are facing potential loss of their post office. They're still really important community services. We should be looking at bringing them together with banking hubs, perhaps with other community services. I've got, I think, 7 or 8 Labour members of Parliament and Democratic Unionist, Conservative and several Liberal Democrats. So I hope it meets the cross-party test. And there are more names that I could have added to the list. Thank you, Mr. Blackman. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so your application is for a chamber debate on a general debate. Obviously, chamber time is very precious.
Yeah.
And it might well be that you would wish to put a divisible motion to your subject. So it's up to you. But our first available slot is Thursday the 30th of January, the second debate. Would you take that if it's offered to you?
I'd take that with gratitude. I'm just checking there's no particular reason why that. Thursday the 30th of January in the afternoon. Yeah, myself, I'm happy.
Any questions from colleagues? No? Right.
I'm mainly on here supporting the application as well. Just wanted to say.
Anything you'd like to add to the application?
I do think that this is it's a wide-ranging debate. It affects constituencies all over the country, and so I think it's highly appropriate to bring it to the Backbench Business Committee, and if we are able to debate it on the floor, I think it will bring due prominence to the concerns that people have.
Right. Well, thank you very much. The clerks will be in touch shortly. We move to Ben Maguire. Ben. Next application is for a debate from Ben Maguire on rural crime. I'm assuming it's opposing rural crime or combating it.
Yeah.
Great.
Over to you to present your application.
Thanks very much, Chair, and thanks for having me today, and thanks to the other committee members for considering my application. I'm a member of the Home Affairs Select Committee, and today I'm seeking a debate on rural crime, an issue of growing concern for communities across the UK, like mine in North Cornwall. Rural crime costs our communities £52.8 million. It was increased by almost 4.5% in 2023, according to the NFU's Rural Crime Report. This includes things from theft of farm machinery and livestock to drug trafficking by county lines gangs, which has been raised by members of all parties in the House of Commons. These crimes devastate rural communities, not just financially, but socially, leaving lots of our residents feeling completely unsafe. The debate that I'm applying for will provide members from across the House with an opportunity to address the impact on the livelihoods and safety of their rural constituents, and hopefully suggest practical solutions to strengthen rural policing, particularly with an emphasis on strategy. As you'll see in my application, I've secured a 50-50 split of sponsor members between government and opposition parties. And while I'm flexible on the potential dates of the debate to take place, I would kindly request that it be scheduled within the next month, if possible, given the urgency of this issue and given that it directly affects mine and many other constituents. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. So your application is for a 90-minute Westminster Hall debate on a Tuesday or a Thursday. We always like to oblige. So the first available slot we have is Thursday the 30th of January, which will be the second debate on in Westminster Hall. If that's offered, will you be able to accept it?
Yes, I think that should be fine.
Thank you. Any questions, colleagues? No? Okay. Thank you very much. The clerks will be in touch.
Thanks very much. Thanks.
Thank you.
We'll skip over the next one. I'm a member of the committee. To move on to Bambos Charalambos with a request for a debate on debt in the Jubilee year 2025. Bambos, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. 2025 is a Jubilee year, and this is of great significance to many Christian organisations who are interested in debt relief, particularly CAFON, Christian Aid, but also organisations like Debt Justice. So I'm seeking a debate to look at the issue of global debt, how it affects low-income developing countries, particularly on the issues of private creditors who are a significant part of the debt that is affecting many of the nations. For example, in Africa, about 40% of the debt is owed to private creditors. So this is one issue that's not previously been addressed, and something that would be very welcome to have an airing. There was a success in the year 2000, which was the last Jubilee year where this was raised in debt relief, and I think there's something of great importance that does need to be looked at. So to look at what the issues are in relation to some of the low-income developing countries who are debt distressed. The G20 have identified this as an area which they want to focus on, and I think it would benefit from having an airing as a backbench debate, and that's what I'm seeking to do today.
Okay, so your application is for either a 3-hour debate in the Chamber or a 90-minute debate in Westminster Hall on a Thursday. We've also got a suggested redraft of the title, which to be debt cancellation for low-income countries, as opposed to, probably makes it clearer for people with respect. So we would be able to offer you potentially a slot on Thursday the 6th of February in Westminster Hall, which will be the second debate on. Would that be acceptable to you?
Yes, that would, yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from colleagues? No? Everyone happy? Okay, thank you very much. The clerks will be in touch.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Then the next application is for a joint applications from Rebecca Long-Bailey, John Hayes, Liz Jarvis and Sir Julian Lewis. And this is a request for a debate on financial redress for 1950s women impacted by the DWP maladministration of state pension age changes, otherwise known as WASPy women. Rebecca, over to you.
Thank you, Mr Blackman, for making time to hear our application, and to members of the committee also. I'm sure it doesn't need an explanation, but for many, many years, many women born in the 1950s have been campaigning against not being informed about changes to their state pension age. And there has been a lot of activity within Parliament over the last few years on this issue. There are a number of different campaign groups representing the women. As you know, WASPy is, of course, one of them. But the concerns that many members across this House have is that you'll probably be aware of an investigation by the Independent Ombudsman into a limited number of cases. And they reported to Parliament last year stating that they were of the view that the Department for Work and Pensions was guilty of maladministration, and they made a selection of recommendations to provide these women affected with some mechanism of redress. Now, the new government responded to that report just before Christmas in December, accepting the findings of maladministration and apologising to the women, which was very, very welcome, but not to offer a mechanism of redress nor a debate within Parliament on this issue. And that's what members who have supported this application are asking for, simply to have the ability to represent the cases of their constituent to the government in Parliament, to examine the various different permutations that might be available in terms of redress, and essentially to find a way forward for the government and members across this House to give these women the justice that they deserve. And my colleagues may wish to add to the comments that I've made.
Yes, I would just say that it's really, really important that the women do get heard properly via their representatives in Parliament. And although we had a Westminster Hall debate last week, it was very, very rushed and there wasn't time for hardly anyone to speak. And I think it's really, really important that we do right by these women and give them the opportunity to have their voices heard.
Yes, and I was one of the few who was fortunate enough to be able to speak in that Westminster Hall debate. I've seldom, if ever, seen the Westminster Hall so overcrowded. I think there were about 50 colleagues crammed in there, so it literally was people perching on windowsills. and in the end there was a sort of 2-minute guideline, which I fear I exceeded slightly, and still the vast majority couldn't get in. I would particularly put in a plea that this would be a longish debate in the main chamber, but also earlier in the week rather than on a Thursday, which might make it more likely, because I'm sure people will want to have a vote if they possibly can, and it might make it more easy to affect a vote, but I appreciate that that may not be integral to the decision you make. But I think it's worth bearing in mind that it would be good to have a debate on this particular subject, which seems to have so much appeal and so much interest at a time when the maximum number of colleagues are present in Westminster.
Okay, well, obviously we don't control what time the government allocates to us. We, generally speaking, get Thursday afternoons, as you know, but the government have been allocating Monday afternoons as well, so we just don't know. The first available slot we have, that we think we're going to have, is Thursday the 13th of February, which actually will be the last day before the recess. It would be the first debate on. And without second-guessing what the committee may have to say, it may well be that we extend the time from just a normal 3-hour debate, given the number of speakers there are, to allow everyone to have their say. Mm-hmm. But I don't want to prejudge what there is. And yes, and of course, because there was a Westminster Hall debate, this will need a motion, of divisible motion, for us to allocate the chamber. So, your reaction to the 13th of February, can we?
I think as early as possible. Monday would be preferable, but we appreciate that you don't control the diary. So I think as soon as possible would be preferable. And I think allowing the longer time period is definitely welcome. So thank you for that, because I think in terms of the debate that we'll be having, it will need sufficient time for members to be able to make the case for the various options that could be available to government, and 2-minute speeches don't allow for that level of detail, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think one of the things we would like to see as well, but that's a discussion with the speakers, is those people that didn't get a chance to speak in the Westminster Hall debate, they can actually get the chance to speak in the chamber. So priority given to them in the speaking order, but that's for the speakers, as you know. Okay, any questions from any colleagues?
Just
yes,
check. So obviously it's a really important issue, and you didn't have enough time to speak last time. Is the aim of this obviously getting as many people to speak? Because sometimes putting it in Westminster Hall, again, might allow you to have actually allotted time, whereas the chamber sometimes gets squashed down and condensed quite easily. What do you want more people to speak, or do you want it in the chamber for gravitas? That's what I'm kind of trying to ask.
It was to allow more people to speak and for longer time slots to be given to those speakers, essentially, because there are 2 reasons that people will want to speak in the chamber. 1, to raise the particular cases of their constituents, but 2, to actually outline what options could be available to government, and these are financial options, very detailed ones, or options involving mediation, and unfortunately allows, you need more time than a few minutes to be able to go into the detail.
That's fair, because obviously we have seen over the last couple of weeks debates cancelled and squashed down, condensed in the chamber because of how things roll over, so that might be something for the committee. Yeah. But preference is time then?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Sorry, Julie.
I just wanted to say there is also the issue of salience. Rebecca may correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there was any coverage at all of the Westminster Hall debate, even though it was so well attended and many strong feelings were expressed. I don't recall that there was any coverage on the radio that evening, for example.
That's often up to the proposers of the debate, I have to say, to make that happen. But that's what. We also have a division now. Unfortunately. So can I take it that the clerks will be in touch with you about the potential day? We don't know that far ahead as to which days we're going to get that week, if any. So that's the date we think we're going to get.
Lovely. Thanks so much. We really appreciate
Thank you.
your help.
Are we going to go vote?
Well, I'm afraid we're going to have to adjourn and suspend until after.
We will hear you, Lloyd.
We
I
think
promise.
we've got 3 votes.
We've got Martin as well, haven't we? So we've got two more too. So
After the last vote, we'll come back.
straight back. Yeah. That's no problem at all.
The Backbench Business Committee will reconvene to hear the last two applications before us. The first of those is from Lloyd Hatton on undue influence, strengthening the rules around political finance. And this is a request for a 3-hour debate in the Chamber with a divisible motion. Over to you, Lloyd.
Thank you, Mr. Blackman. I think, as I'm sure members of the committee have read the suggested substantive motion, you can see that this debate hopes to cover a range of important topics relating to political finance within our democracy. I think firstly touching on opaque funding of political parties where it's not clear who the donor is due to structures used, looking at issues around undue influence, where donations can lead to undue influence over an individual or a political party. It also wants to touch on the regulatory side of things, so looking at the electoral commissions, the powers that it does have, and perhaps those that need to be granted to that commission so it can be an effective watchdog when it comes to political finance. We also want to look at permissible donations. This has been quite a topical issue about what is a permissible donor and what is not, and also how some individuals might seek to bend or use loopholes in the existing legal framework to become a permissible donor, such as using companies based here in the UK, and that's the last point that this motion touches on. So it would certainly be quite a varied and broad debate covering a number of important technical issues relating to political finance. And again, I think the main reasons for this debate is that it is topical. This is something that has received a great deal of news coverage over the Christmas New Year period, and I think it's something which would welcome sort of full and open debate in the Commons. I also think what's really interesting is that there is cross-party support that the current system isn't fit for purpose. I wouldn't suggest that everyone agrees on what should replace it, but I think that's why a debate is important. I also think that's why there are a number of members who've indicated that they would like to participate in this debate from a breadth of parties. We've got a leader of the opposition, a former leader of the opposition, former members of cabinet, and a whole range of backbenchers from different political parties. So there's clearly a sense, I think, within the Commons that this is an issue that is ripe for discussion, and where actually we need to consider how we can update and refresh our legal and regulatory framework in relation to the financing of our political parties. And finally, I would just say, and I've touched upon this in my application, public trust on this issue is very, very low, and I actually think the public would welcome seeing a frank, robust, dignified debate on this topic. I think the public would welcome that. And finally, I would say this is not about a political barb or about going after one party or one individual. I think all parties have made mistakes here and have got, previous scandals, previous mistakes in this area. So it's not about going after one party or individual. It's about accepting that trust is low, the current system isn't fit for purpose, and then talking about where we go next.
So the application is for a chamber debate. At the moment, chamber time, we're not sure of when we're going to get chamber time, and it's likely to be after the recess to set your expectation levels. One suggestion is that we do a redraft of the title to give it to make it political finance rules, which might be a more straightforward title, because it does need to be neutral as opposed to suggesting strengthening, if I could put it that way. The other suggestion I just have personally on your motion is maybe a tweak around the amount that companies could give. In other words, that it shouldn't exceed the profits they make. The point, my point then being that if a company is, should we say, a worldwide company that is operating in the UK, then the donation should not exceed the amount of profit they make in the UK, rather than using a UK company to channel money from overseas into our system.
No, I think that would be fine. We could certainly broaden that to make sure it includes. It's not about either or; it's both. I think so. I completely agree.
It's just a tweak at the end of your motion, but just a suggestion. It's your motion. So.
Yeah, I'll take that away, but I'm sure that's absolutely fine. And on the title, completely fine with that. the motion does the talking about what we're debating, so the title isn't by any means important.
Any questions from colleagues? No? Everyone happy?
I mean, just a comment, really, if I may, Chair. Just I think what I would say to Lloyd is thank you for a really quite comprehensive application, to be honest with you, because I mean, I've done two myself, so I'm guilty of this, of not putting a lot in the application, but you've really given a lot of detail, which is really useful. So thank you.
Thank you, and I should stress that I'm a member and of the APG, the cross-party group on anti-corruption and responsible tax. So their support here has been invaluable. They've helped with previous applications on SLAPs, for example, and I think they certainly help set the issue out in a really clear and informed way.
Take the credit, Lloyd, it's yours.
Couldn't possibly.
Okay, thank you very much, Lloyd. The clerks will be in touch with you in due course. The final application for us to hear today is from a member of the committee, Martin Vickers, I think supported by Mannion. As Martin is a member of the committee, he won't take any part in the deliberations on the application, but will obviously present the bid. So this is for a debate on improving rail services with open access operators. A Westminster Hall debate request for either a Tuesday or a Thursday. Martin.
Thank you, Chairman. Perhaps just by way of declaration of interest, whether it's relevant, I don't know, but I'm chairman of the all-party rail group. But this is an issue which is both national and, for Melanie and I, a particularly local issue. I think East Coast, on the East Coast, where open access operators compete with the main operator, which is LNER, I think members who are familiar with the East Coast will be aware that people like Lumo, Grand Central, and in particular Hull Trains have opened up new destinations and also provided competition, which I think has kept LNER services up to a good standard. But the other reason I think open access operators should be allowed more freedom to access the network is that they provide services to new destinations, and we've seen that on the East Coast with services through to Huddersfield, Halifax, Sunderland, Hartlepool, and many others. Hull Trains is a good example because they've done for the north bank of the Humber what we would like an operator to do for the south bank and dramatically improve transport connections, which again encourages economic development and growth, which of course is a key government target. So I would hope that the committee will recognise the opportunities that open access provide and grant this opportunity to give it an airing.
Thank you. Melanie, anything to add?
As well as this being an East Coast issue and particularly relevant to the Northern Lincolnshire area, lots of places will have access issues in terms of transportation. I think it will generate quite a lot of interest in terms of general transport issues, accessibility issues, and economic benefit issues. So hopefully we will get a good showing by holding this debate, and I think it will be a good use of Westminster Hall time.
Okay, the first available slot we have for Westminster Hall is Thursday the 6th of February, which will be the first slot at 1:30. If the committee offers that to you, would you be able to accept it? Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
Yes, I think this is a really important debate, and I remember when Hull Trains started their first service, you know, one train a day, and no one said they would be able to do it, and look what they did. You mentioned the West Coast Main Line as an example, but just looking at the title of the debate, you are talking about any rail line with
Absolutely,
that, just to
yes.
be clear.
I mean, I know there's an open access operator application in at the moment for the West Country, and we've had constant complaints in the Chamber over the years about Avanti on the West Coast and some competition for them in the same way as LNER have adapted to the competition, and before LNER, Virgin and all the other various operators. I think it's an opportunity for an improvement to services as well as new destinations.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? No? Well, thank you very much. As I've said before, the clerks will be in touch shortly. Okay. That concludes the public business. We've received all the applications now. The committee will now go into private session to consider those applications. Order, order.